Hello friends, this is Miki or Michal.Towber. Welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, thank you for stopping by. If you do enjoy this content, please do subscribe because it helps the channel a lot. So last week I did a reaction video to Dimash, the Diva dance, at Bastau in 2017. And I thought it would be really fun this week to try to do a technical breakdown of how to sing the song. I have not learned how to sing the song. I have not studied it extensively. So this is gonna be a really real-time peek into how I would go about learning something that's very technically challenging. And I just wanna say at the beginning of this video that I'm not saying by any means that by the end of watching this that you are going to be able to sing like Dimash or that I can sing like Dimash. He is somebody that has been blessed genetically with a wonderful instrument. And as I've said in many videos before, your voice is unlike any other instrument in that it is housed within your body. So you do have certain physical limitations on your range, and depending on how you've been training on your breath support and how powerful you can get. So there are limitations on my range. I certainly do not pretend to be able to sing as well as Dimash. He is a world-renowned, very, very famous singer. But I have been studying singing for a long time, and I can give you some insights into how I would go about learning something that's very technically challenging. So that's our goal today. Let's set reasonable expectations. We're not all gonna be Dimash by the end of this video, myself included. Also, I will say that you will hear some power tools in the background today. We are having our bathroom renovated, so I apologize for the ambient noise. Okay, so let's jump right in and try to do this. To begin with, I'm gonna do a little bit of a vocal warm-up using my singing straw, which is a medically and scientifically backed tool to really help your vocal cords work optimally. And this was invented by my vocal coach, Whitney Nicole. And what you would do with something like this is you can do any of your normal vocal warm-ups, but what I like to do is just do some sirens and sweeps up and down through my range, and it's a very efficient and healthy way of warming up your voice. And I will put a link to the singing straw down below in the description box if you want to get one, and I have an affiliate code so you can get a little discount as well. All right, so we're just going to do a couple slides through this because I have not warmed up at all today. So I like to go through my entire range, and normally if I have any cracks or breaks, I will kind of zero in on that little section of my slide and go over that a few times. I'm not going to do an extensive warm-up right now because it's going to be boring for you and we want to jump right into the content. Okay, so here we go. Okay, so we're gonna stop it right there. We're gonna do this little tiny piece by little tiny piece. So immediately he's starting with this mixed voice tone and he's sliding up. And when he gets up to that high note, he's opening his vocal cords a little bit to allow that nice natural vibrato. Vibrato is produced by relaxing into it. It's not a conscious oscillation or trill of your voice. So when you go up for that high note, you want to keep your throat really open and relax into it. So this is another interesting interval passage. So learning something like that, if it takes you a couple times to listen through those interval jumps, that's totally fine. This is part of ear training. So this is something that I go over with my students all the time. I'll take 2-note passages, 3-note passages, 4-note passages, 5-note passages, and we'll slowly work up how many notes you can retain in your ear after hearing them and singing them back right away. So since this is kind of like a weird interval jump, I might go to the piano and play it and break it down if I was having trouble hearing it. But obviously just repetitious listening to it is gonna help a lot too. And he's really keeping it in that nice mixed voice space. It's not too breathy and it's not too chesty. he gets up to that high note, he's pushing a little bit more into that. So you don't want to be straining, you don't want to be pushing from your throat, but you do want to be activating your core a little bit more. And I talk about this in my other videos on breath support if you want to go back and watch those. Really, a big component of breath support is using your core muscles or your stomach muscles, because the muscles in your throat are very, very tiny and they're not going to give you a lot of power. And if you use those to project your voice, you're going to get strain and your voice is going to sound really choked up. But if you use those big core muscles, you're not going to exert a lot of effort and you can actually get a lot of power and resonance. Okay, so now we get our first really, really high note. So let's check on the piano what that note is so I can tell you exactly. Okay, so that is a D6. We are gonna go higher than that in this song, but that is still hard to sing. So definitely before you attempt singing something like that, you wanna have warmed up your voice fully and gone into your high range. Doing slides like we did with the singing straw is a really, really good way to do it. When you sing a high note like that, my best advice is to try to stay open. Keep your throat really, really open and your soft palate raised, your tongue neutral. Try to maximize that space, because if you allow your voice to kind of get swallowed back here, you're gonna have really a lot of trouble hitting those notes. So you wanna take a nice yawny breath to really, really be able to get up there. And even then, it's gonna be challenging. So now we get those really precise pitches where he's really nailing those pitches exactly on, and the notes are very staccato and separated. So this is something that I would practice very slowly and then work up to speed. So you're really nailing those pitches and you're not sliding from below or above. Okay guys, so we've gotten through 41 seconds out of a 1 minute and 41 second performance. So you can see that even though this is a very, very short song, there is a lot packed in there to learn. So let's continue, shall we? Woo! So again, that's a pretty long passage. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So if I'm trying to memorize something like that, the human brain is really good at memorizing up to 7 things, which is why phone numbers were originally 7 digits. So learning something like that, you have to listen to it multiple times if you're not used to doing stuff like that. And ear training can really, really help with that sort of thing. All right. So now we have that. So that's pretty high. Let's see what note that is. Now we're getting into the stratosphere here. That might be a D again. Let's see. Okay, so the riff actually goes up to an F6, which is higher than the last one. So it's. So if I were having trouble breaking that down, I would come over to here, which is my piano station, and I would pick out the notes on the piano. Of course, if you don't play an instrument, this is gonna be a lot harder, but you can slow it down. You can put it at 75 speed and just listen to it repeatedly and do it note by note. And you can hear that when I go up for that, it's hard for me to hit that high note, right? I'm getting phlegmy. And it's hard for me to be precise on that pitch because this is just high for me. I have an alto voice, so when I'm hitting those soprano notes, it's really hard for me to get up there. But obviously warming up your voice really well and continuing to do stretches into your upper range is gonna help with that. And the fact that he is a man and he can sing up there with no problem is really, really impressive. The other thing is when he's singing those very, very high notes, they're very staccato and there's no breathiness. His chords are very, very closed and the notes are very focused and precise. So you're not hearing any aspiration. So you really want to make sure that if you're up there and you're having trouble getting your chords together, you're having trouble getting rid of that breathiness, you can practice it on a sound like because that's going to bring your chords together very efficiently and really help eliminate that breathy sound. So we have the end of that riff. And then he immediately goes way down into his chest voice, right? Whoa! but he's actually being pretty light down there. He's not super heavy, right? You're not getting that oh, super chesty sound. And I think that's a really interesting characteristic of his voice. Even though he gets a lot of power, you're never really hearing him singing in this bombastic or strident way that a lot of singers sing in, right? We have a lot of showy singers that do vocal acrobatics that really try to punch their sound, like Lady Gaga comes to mind. When she sings and she gets that chesty belt, it's so powerful sounding. His is much more graceful, and it sounds like he's using a certain amount of restraint. Sometimes he gets really loud, especially on his high notes where he's really resonating and singing like an opera singer. But for the most part, he's singing in more of a mix, and there is a certain restraint and grace to the tone. So it's never like super aggressive or harsh sounding. There's a certain gentleness to his tone, if that makes sense. So this is cool. So now he slides up, right, to get, right, so he's sliding up to get up there. And you can hear that I'm not fully precise with my pitch when I get up into those high notes. He's extremely precise, but he has that slide just like we were doing on the warm-up with the So a good way to practice that would be to do some sweeps and sirens. So this is very hard to hear, these intervals. So let's listen to this again. So he's moving by half steps, by semitones, and that's a very difficult interval to hear unless you've done ear training, because it's not something that we normally hear unless you're singing like the Jaws theme, right? That da-na, 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 mostly in Western music, we're not moving chromatically, so that's a hard thing to hear. That again. Right, those are really difficult intervals to hear. So that's something that I would have to listen to repeatedly in order to memorize. Very hard to sing up there for me. And he's so crystal clear. It's like he's a little songbird or something chirping up there. It's really incredible. So here's a very difficult riff. I would take this over to the piano again and listen to it multiple times. And even if you don't play the piano, one way that you can learn a difficult riff like this is to slow it down to 75 speed, which is a little trick that I learned not so long ago. One of my students showed me that I could slow down videos on YouTube. It's very helpful, especially for crazy long riffs like this. So it's actually not that difficult a riff to learn. The really difficult part about it is where it turns into the major scale at the very end, right? That's an unexpected little piece. And you can hear that I'm not singing it very clearly. I'm getting phlegmy up there because it's very high for me. But if you are a soprano, it's gonna be a lot easier for you to sing up there. But that's how I would learn a riff like that. I would slow it down and I would listen to it multiple times and just break it down note by note. So there he just gets a very nice vibrato, right? He gets a lot of resonance, and that is his classical training coming through, where he's really maximizing his projection. He probably wouldn't even need the microphone. If he sang without the microphone, you'd probably be able to hear him because he's getting so much power from being able to aim his resonance in the correct place in his mask and maximizing his surface area, his resonant chamber in his throat and in his face. Now we're gonna get one of those really nice low slides again, so let's hear that. So there he starts with a vocal fry, right? You hear that little growl. But the speed that he gets up there is really impressive. So when you're doing a slide, you might find that your voice is flipping or breaking when you're changing from one registration to another. So when you're going from your pulse register, that growl, that's kind of below your chest voice, and then you transition into your chest voice, that's one area that you might get a little break, right? That kind of yodely flip. And then when you go from your chest voice into your head voice, is another passaggio or transition bridge where your voice might flip. And so the way to get around that is to slow down your slide and to use less air, because the more you blow, the harder it is for your chords to come together. And you're gonna be using, the more pressure that you use, the more your muscles are gonna grip. So when you're in your chest voice muscles are gonna be pushing, and then at a certain point when you get to your head voice range, they're gonna have to release and you get a break in your voice. So to get to the speed and the smooth transition that Dimash has is gonna take a little while, and that's totally fine. I would just slow it down and do your slides and sirens very, very slow and small. So then we have those very, very precise little staccato notes, right? So again, they're very, very precise, focused sound, not a lot of air blowing through those chords. You can practice them on that sound to get a really, really nice closed chord. So again, very, very precise little staccato notes. So you can see in his video, he's getting maximum surface area. So he's really opening his mouth wide like a snake, kind of unhinging its jaw, right? You can really see all the way down his throat, and you can see that his tongue is very, very flat. So that's how he's really getting that projected, loud, maximum volume sound. Okay, so that high note, let's see what note that is. Okay, so that high note is actually a D6, which is not the highest note that we've gotten to in this song, but what makes that ending note really challenging is that he gets so much power up there, right? So if you want to get something like that, you really gotta pay attention to your technique. And the way that I would get into that is I would use like a woo sound, like woo! You can get very, very high with that. But of course, it's hard to get a precise pitch using something like that. But I would get into the sound that way, and I would really focus on keeping a very, very open, relaxed apparatus. So maximizing the surface area in your throat and in your face. And then he gets a really, really nice vibrato up there as well. So he gets that really, really nice opera singer, woo! Which is very, very hard for a normal human who has not been trained in opera singing to do. But there you have it. So that's how I would go about learning to sing something like this. And obviously I've broken it into really, really small, tiny pieces. So I'm not singing it all the way through, which adds much more difficulty to the exercise. So if I were to perform something like this, it would take me a long time to really string all of those things together. And even though it's a very, very short performance, there's so much in there technically that it's very, very challenging. So for him to sing that straight through in a minute and a half and be so precise and nail every single note like that and not have any of that phlegminess or difficulty in getting those high notes and just having such a clear, perfect, smooth technique is what really makes this performance impressive. And I also love that he seems very chill, you know, like his whole vibe on stage, he seems very relaxed in the way that he's singing. So it doesn't seem like he's expending a lot of effort to do this. And I think the ease with which he does things that are so technically difficult is one of the things that's really, really impressive about him. So anyway, there you have it. Hopefully this was helpful. And I will see you here next week for another singing video. Until then, happy singing.